tree-hugging bastard!
So it's been about 2.5 years since Baldur's Gate 3 released, and I just wanted to remind everyone that yes, it is still the best game to be released in the last decade. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. No, in all seriousness, since Divinity was revealed at the Game Awards by Larian, a lot of people have been wondering if they should finally give Baldur's Gate 3 a shot, or maybe they should go back and play the older Divinity games. And also, there's an amazing channel that I'm sure you have already heard of, but it's called Mortismal Gaming, who kind of actually started as a Divinity lore channel. So if you want to know all there is to know about that stuff before Larian's next game, then that's definitely the place to go. But if you want a more, I guess, beginner-friendly or modern interpretation of their systems and just turn-based combat, and genuinely just like a masterpiece to play, then I personally believe that you should go with Baldur's Gate 3. For one thing, I think it still does the best in terms of player agency. Like, there's things to this day, even after 1,300 hours and something like 20-odd playthroughs, that I've just never even seen. An average playthrough takes me about 50 hours or so, and my first playthrough took me over 180 hours. God damn! So you must go. Sometimes I start a playthrough with a specific goal in mind, like doing things in a certain way with a race that I hardly use and seeing if I can get different outcomes, or going through a specific region with a certain party structure. And I'll do all of this sort of like scenario testing, going back and forth, picking different options in conversations, choosing different party members with a particular race, just to get like one extra dialogue option or some throwaway comment from my party companions that amounts to like 15 seconds before the interaction goes back to the original script. And I'll spend like maybe 7 to 10, maybe even upwards of like 15 hours per playthrough going back and forth, save scumming and redoing encounters, and even seeing what happens if I fail all the dialogue checks versus passing all of them. I've never played a game in which if I just waste all my time, like genuinely wasting time doing nothing besides going back and forth, not really progressing at all, just doing that constantly over and over again, just for the off chance that I might see or hear something new. And that in and of itself is really, really fun and feels like a sandbox to me. I've never played a game like that before. I think that what I feel about Baldur's Gate 3 is probably what people feel about like Skyrim and Oblivion and like Morrowind, you know, those older Bethesda titles that people felt gave the player maximum freedom in like an open world to do just whatever the fuck they wanted to do. And sometimes people say like, oh, I don't like that. I want a game that is like more on the rails, a game with a clear direction and not just, wow, just get turned around doing 100 different things and there's 100 different side quests and dozens of different ways to complete those side quests and missions. You know, I want a game that's more straightforward. And to those people, I say, well, for one, you probably don't like RPGs in general, and that if that's the case, but you know, that's all right. But two, it's called player agency for a reason. You don't have to do all this extra stuff, min-maxing and play like a completionist if you really don't want to. If you really only want like 2 or 3 companions in a single playthrough in Baldur's Gate 3, you can do just that. Of course, you'll be missing out on some of the best storylines in all of gaming, at least in my opinion, but the game lets you make a choice who you do and don't want to travel with, if anyone at all, which is actually more difficult in this game than something like the Divinity games, which has the lone wolf ability. So it really discourages you from playing the game alone. And then the game also even comments on it by the end of Act 2 if you didn't recruit anyone. But they still let you do that. But it also doesn't intrude on your ability to complete the main story if you miss 80% of the content that's in the game. So for anyone who thinks that Baldur's Gate 3 is too big or that there's too much busy work, which I'll grant you, I actually think that there is too much busy work in Act 3. I think there just is too much and it should have been sort of sprinkled across the first 2 acts. But for the most part, I really feel like it is optional and I don't think you're missing out on the general experience of Baldur's Gate 3. Well, actually, that's not true. I think you're missing out on what makes this game so special to me and a lot of other players, but still, I think the game it can be enjoyed, again, in like 1,000 different ways. Again, going back to Skyrim, people have told me, to my face, they've told me that they have well over 1,000 hours in Skyrim and that they've never seen the credits roll. That's fucked. Like, to me, that just sounds like crazy talk, but a lot of people like the exploration and the endless dungeons and quests that there is in the game like that. So in a way, I do kind of get it coming from Baldur's Gate 3. Also, let me take the time to defend the Baldur's Gate 3 community, since a lot of people seem to hate on them that don't play the game and who have no clue what the game is. They just accuse it of being a boring turn-based gameplay. I'm like, first off, well, that's debatable. You know, if you played Expedition 33 and then you turn around and say Baldur's Gate 3 has boring turn-based, I'm not sure I can take your opinion seriously at that point, but I've seen those takes.
At ease, friend. You're welcome to rest here.
Or they say that everyone who plays a game likes it for its sim-like romance, and they have nothing better to do than to simp over video game characters. That's incredibly short-sighted, considering that companions are completely optional, but whatever. Or they say people who like this game are probably just overweight, jobless bums. Yes, I've seen this said in hate threads, and I've seen it been upvoted to hell, and that they can just sink 150 hours plus into a single playthrough because they have nothing better to do. And yes, this is obviously just not fucking true at all. I'll put it on screen right now. It's not true. Or they complain about the fact that it uses a D&D system and they don't like D&D, or they're unfamiliar with it and they like the Pathfinder or the 13th Age system better. For that, all I got to say is just try it out. That's really all I have to say. Like, I didn't like the Pathfinder system as well at first, and I found it like overly complex and sort of complicated when it didn't need to be compared to D&D at least. Like, I tried out Kingmaker. I didn't really like Kingmaker at first, and Right to the Righteous, I almost outright quit because it was such a steep learning curve. But eventually I got over it and I love those games now. I would also say that the combat is actually the best part about Baldur's Gate 3, at least to me. It's incredibly responsive for a turn-based game. Like the lag time or the switch time between actions and turns almost make it feel real time because of how smooth the transitions are. I remember playing Dragon Age Inquisition recently and I just went, why does this feel somehow slower than Baldur's Gate 3? And I think that that's because one executes turn-based and the interactions and responses to actions so efficiently that it just feels so good to play, while the other does I guess a decent job at real time with pause tactics, but doesn't really shine in any direction. And again, that's why I tell people who don't like turn-based to just play the game and you'll know what I mean. Like, it literally doesn't feel like a turn-based game sometimes, and especially when you're on higher difficulty, because you're going to be so focused on your preparation and your positioning of every encounter. The mechanics of the game, the combat, it all feels really good to mess around with. And yeah, by the end of your first playthrough, you'll probably have an appreciation for how well it was done in this game. But anyways, I could talk about Baldur's Gate 3 for hours if I really wanted to. I could talk about each individual character that I like Minthara.
Silence now, creature, or I will silence you forever.
Or Raphael.
My, what manner of place is this? A path to redemption? Or a road to damnation? Hard to say, for your journey is just beginning. What would suit the occasion? The words to a lullaby, perhaps. The mouse smiled brightly. It outfoxed the cat. Then down came the claw. And that, love, was that.
Or characters I can't fucking stand, like Will.
Blade of Frontiers, Do you always need to be the center of attention?
Anything but. I don't fight to be flattered, Lae'zel. I fight to save lives.
I know, hot take, a person doesn't like Will. He really is the weakest character in the game though. Like, in terms of companions at least. I'd rather have fucking Minsk and Jaheira. And they're really just cameo add-ons as an homage to people who played Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. But other than that, I could talk about my favorite weapons, armor, builds, preset builds, spells, skills, features, I mean, you name it. I will talk your damn ear off about it. But I'll leave it there for today. We can continue the conversation in the comments. Let me know on a scale of 1 to 10 how y'all feel about Baldur's Gate 3. If you played it, or if you haven't played it, tell me why and what's holding you back from giving it a shot. But anyways, that's it for me. I'll see you next time.